Welcome and greetings, and we're going to embark upon another series of weekly devotionals this week as we take a look at one of the lectionary texts for the upcoming Sunday. This week we're going to look at the first part of Exodus chapter 32, and this story is probably familiar to most of you. It's the story of the golden calf, the people of Israel making a golden calf, and Moses coming down from the mountain and not being too happy with the people about their particular choice. A couple of Sundays ago, I preached I used a story from one of my favorite movies, Unforgiven, and I talked about the crooked sheriff and how Clint Eastwood wins a gunfight with him at the end of the story. In the climactic scene, he's lying on the floor of the saloon, and he wonders, how could this have all gone so wrong? How could my life have gone so terribly wrong? I've been a good person. I've worked hard. I've made a lot of money. I've done the right things. How could this have all gone south on me? And I can sort of empathize with that scene, because I remember thinking sort of the same thing when I flunked out of college. After only a few short semesters, I thought to myself, I got straight A's in high school. I aced the college boards, the SAT exams. I was in advanced placement classes. I did all kinds of community service. I was sure to be a success story in college. How could it have all gone so terribly wrong? And I think the same thing about the people of Israel in this story. In this story today. The story of the golden calf. They were God's chosen people, the people of God, and God promised to them that their descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And God freed them from bondage in Egypt, the great dramatic miracle story of the parting of the Red Sea. And then God was with them traveling through the desert. And then God promised that eventually God would lead them to a land flowing with milk and honey, the promised land. These were God's people. How is it that we get to verse 9 in chapter 32, where it reads, "The Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them." How did we get to this point? How did it all go so terribly wrong for the people of Israel? Well, with my flunking out of college, as is probably true with the character of the crooked sheriff in the movie Unforgiven, it didn't happen just like that. It didn't happen overnight. My fall from grace, if you will, was a series of many, many countless small choices that added up to my failure. It wasn't just I woke up one morning and realized it all went wrong. No, there were countless opportunities where I could have studied, but I didn't. There were many, many homework assignments that I could have handed in, but I didn't. There were notes that I could have taken, but I didn't. There were classes I should have gone to, but I blew off. So these were a series of choices over and over again. And I think the same thing is true with this story of the people of Israel. They were freed from bondage and then almost immediately expressed ungratitude towards God. They were a little bit hungry and said, "You should have left us back in Egypt where we were by the flesh pots and we had our fill of food." They were ungrateful for what God had done, and then they started grumbling and complaining over and over again. And then God provided manna for them in the wilderness, bread from heaven. But then they were insecure and scared, and so instead of trusting God, they hoarded the manna, and then that didn't work out so well. And then right before this story, as the story begins, Moses goes up to the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments from God, but the people are impatient. Where did Moses go? Why did Moses leave us? We can't wait for Moses. And so then they forge this golden calf. And so it's over 40 years, time and time again, the people just make unwise choices, and their choices lead up to God finally having enough. And I think the same is true for us in our lives. We have all kinds of choices each and every day, literally dozens of choices each and every day where we can follow God, we can trust in God and follow God's ways and do the right thing, or follow our own way. And of course, all of these choices eventually will add up to where we find ourselves in our relationship with God. And so, my thought for today, my reflection for today is, let's think about those tiny, small choices that we have each and every day, and how if we over and over again consistently choose to follow God's ways, we might be able to ask not with displeasure and frustration, but to ask with wonder and amazement, how have things gone so right? Amen.